Good evening, good afternoon. Welcome back to High Top Sports Oregon. I know we have been gone for a little bit, but we are back talking Ducks football. We got Derek the Duck. He's rare and ready to go. Got a High Top Sports shirt on. Love seeing that. And all right, so let's talk about the Mighty Ducks today, taking on the vaunted Montana State. Obviously, a better competition than what my team's playing today. The Long Island Sharks. I don't know if it's a cocktail that you get at a bar, 2 for 1 or what, but um, let's start. We're gonna get right into it. Let's get. This is a good. This is gonna be a good test of one. Um, who's gonna be toting the rock? Because obviously Jordan James goes to the NFL, big component last year. Two is Decorian Moore really the guy? Can he step up and really flash? And then three, uh, obviously quarterback play, new quarterback, and Dante Moore, and then my biggest thing, can they stop the run this year? The Achilles heel of Oregon last year, we saw it early by the three Idaho teams that they played. Um, Obviously, Boise was better than what a lot of people expected, but it really was glaring early. Seemed like they got it fixed a little bit, and then again at the end against Ohio State the second time, just could not stop the run.
Right, right. I mean, to your point, last year, like Ashton Jeanty, I don't think anybody in college football was able to stop him. So that Boise State game, I mean, no, it wasn't pretty, and no, it's not what you want to do against a G5 opponent. But at the end of the day, he was still a first round pick. Like, that one I can have a little more excuse for. But to your point, last year, it kind of feels eerily similar to that Idaho game last year, right? Where you get a pretty high class FCS opponent coming in. They get breaking in a new quarterback who's pretty mobile. I mean, Oregon fans are pretty familiar with Justin Lamson from his days in Stanford. Um, but yeah, that's something that's got to get shored up early, and especially here against Montana State, right? Like you're playing the team who leads the country not only in the FBS or the FCS, but the FBS as well as most rush yards per game. So these guys know how to ground and pound it, and they've done it very successfully. I mean, they ended up in the FCS national championship last year, falling just short. But it's still a pretty high quality opponent that's coming in here. And if Oregon isn't right, we could see something like we saw last year against Idaho early on. I do have a feeling, this year's run defense is going to be a little bit better. I think, we did lose guys like Jamara Caldwell and Jordan Birch from last year and Derek Harmon, who, Derek Harmon was a first round pick. So anytime you lose an interior defensive guy like that, like, you're going to have some growing concerns. But I think Duck fans feel pretty confident overall on the defensive line. I mean, Mateo's coming back, who led the Big Ten in sacks last year. So it's nice to have that staple. Right behind him, you got former five-star Elijah Rushing, who I'm really, really high on. I'm very excited to kind of see what he's able to contribute to the field this year. I'm not sure we're going to see him in every down role, but I think we're going to see plenty of snaps from Elijah Rushing this year. Um, Duck fans, there's plenty of hype behind Amari Washington that comes from Bruce Feldman's most, the freak list. And I believe he was number 3 or 4 on there. Just what he's able to do athletically. Someone his size should not be able to, vert jump 36 inches or bench what he does or squats what he is a mobile guy with some massive size. So I'm really excited to see him get his starting opportunity. We were able to see him plenty last year, but now we know it's different taking over that starting role and being the guy as opposed to being a guy. So I'm excited there. We got plenty of young talent. Blake Purchase is a guy who played his freshman year, didn't play very much last year. I think there was some injury stuff, a little bit of development stuff taking place last year. So he's going to have much more of a impactful role. Tatum Tuioti coming back off the edge. So I feel really good about it coming into this game, but I will say, I think Montana State for an FCS opponent is the perfect first game for this run defense.
Yeah, I'm really looking into the linebackers this year. Last year, it felt like you had a blend of guys, but it didn't. I don't know. At times, it just seemed like it didn't mesh well. Does that make sense? Like the linebackers, you had obviously you had some guys that were a little bit slower, thicker build, and they were definitely run stoppers. And then you have some of the speed linebackers that I really enjoy watching, kind of that hybrid. And I think for the Ducks, if they really want to stop the run, they're gonna have to get those hybrid guys and they're going to have to figure out how to stop the run with the linebackers. The defensive line, I'm really not worried about. Dan Lanning has done a wonderful job in the trenches on both sides. I'm not worried about the defensive line. It's just guys that maybe don't have a lot of snaps that are taking over.
Mhm.
My question is, the biggest question on this defense to me is the linebacker crew, especially with losing some of those guys. What are you expecting out of this linebacker crew? Who's your 1, 2, 3 guys that should really flash today?
Yeah, I think, anytime you lose a guy like Jeff Bassa last year, who, he's currently with the Kansas City Chiefs, going to get his opportunity there. So that's really cool. But, we returned Bryce Betcher, who ended up coming back for his senior season, which is massive. Believe he led the team in tackles last year.
Yep.
So that's our staple, right? He's kind of the kingpin in that linebacking core. Definitely the leader on the defense, just in terms of, the emotional leader and kind of people look up to him. So I feel really good about Bryce Betcher in the one. Kind of that hybrid role we were talking about. You are almost perfectly describing Devin Jackson, who
I'm high on.
hit. Right, correct. And still to this day, they say he may be the fastest player on the team coming from the linebacking core, which is insane because, Oregon tends to be speed university. But he's kind of that hybrid role. I'm really excited to see if he's able to take this leap again this year. He's definitely been a staple in that linebacking room over the last couple of years, but this year he's going to get his opportunity to really be that guy again. And I'm really excited to see what that means for next year as well. I think he will end up coming back next year. He does have one more year of eligibility, but I think he's going to need to have a pretty big year for Oregon to accomplish the things that we want him to accomplish. And then number 3, kind of that replacing Jeff Bassa role. I think that's going to go to Jerry Mixon, who's the cousin of, NFL running back Joe Mixon.
Good bloodlines.
And he's right, bloodlines, yeah. And he's definitely had a big spring, continued that into fall where we're hearing a lot of his name. So I think he's kind of going to be that 3 that gets the first opportunity to show that, hey, I can be this dude here. Dan's talked about him glowingly last year, albeit we didn't get to see him super often. So I'm excited to see him kind of step into that role this year and see if he's able to take that next step and kind of what that looks like. So overall, I think the linebacking core is what I would consider solid, not great. And I think in order to kind of determine whether they can take that next step, we need to see what guys like Jerry Mixon's going to put out on the table. Devin Jackson, is he going to return to full health and be able to play at, his optimum level? Is Bryce Betcher going to be able to return the productivity that he had last year? So just questions that I also have, because this linebacking core is probably the biggest question I have on defense as well. I know most people would point to the secondary and say you have 0 returning starters. Why isn't that your biggest question? And I'm sure we'll get into that here in a second. But yeah, I'm with you. The linebacking core is my biggest concern on this defense.
Yeah, the thing with the DBs is I'm not worried because you got a pretty good defensive line that and the defensive line can help the DBs out. It doesn't matter if you have the best DBs in the world. If they're holding up in coverage 5-6 seconds, they're gonna get roasted anyway. The wide receivers are gonna get torched. I think the biggest kingpin for that defense would be obviously who's playing that nickel. I could imagine today you're not going to see a lot of 2 deep safety stuff. I think they're going to run kind of maybe like a 3-3-5 stack or something like that. Some way to look different, but really load the box with some speed, which they have that linebacker, and maybe a big nickel, because Montana State's going to want to run it down their throat. I think my question to you is, if this goes a lot like Idaho last year, is it okay to sound the alarm of, hey, we got some serious issues again with this run defense, and is it time to maybe start questioning some of the defensive scheme to a point?
Short answer, I would say no. My only logic on it is just because there is so much turnover coming into this season. We are seeing so many new faces come into this year. I mean, even if we just, I know we're talking defense now, but if you go to the offensive side of the ball, where all of a sudden your wide receiver 1 is a true freshman, we have a lot of turnover. Breaking in Dante Moore as a starting quarterback. Mekhi Hughes is a transfer from Tulane. The wide receiver room is looking completely different from last year. Obviously, I feel really good about Kenyon Sadiq in the tight end room, but the offensive line, we have a bunch of playmakers on the offensive line. However, just like last season, it's going to take some time to gel. I think we've saw that across college football, not even necessarily just in the Oregon game. I mean, last year, if you kind of go take a look at Notre Dame, and they had one of the best offensive lines in college football early on in the season, they really struggled. And I think a lot of what it was kind of that mesh point. And we're going to see that today. What the Ducks have going for them is, Montana State's defensive line is not a physically dominant presence. They're not the biggest guys they're going to see. They're not the most talented. They're not the quickest. So I think it's a wonderful opportunity to really establish themselves. In terms of the defense, though, like you said, they're going to need to get that run game figured out. And last year, if we just take a look at it, obviously, the run game got better and better and better as the year went on. And then in that Big Ten championship game, in the Rose Bowl, nothing went right. I mean, the pass defense was atrocious. The rush defense was atrocious. There was nothing good about it. So I think we're going to be okay. I think stepping into this one, like you said, Montana State is going to do everything they can to control the tempo of this game, to control the clock, to run the ball down Oregon's throats. And because of that, I think you're right. I think Oregon's going to do what they can to stack the box and kind of play a big nickel. I can see a lot of single high coverage today just because Justin Lamson is not the quarterback who's going to burn you over the top. So I like how Oregon stacks up today, albeit they have a ton of questions that they need answered. I think they're in a really good position to be able to come out a lot more strongly than they did last year against the Vandals.
Gotcha. So let's go ahead. Let's look at the offensive side of the ball. A guy that I was really high on last year, and then he flashes and then goes MIA for games at a time, and that's obviously the tight end. And Sadiq, I don't understand. He looked really good. I can't remember the exact game, but I think he had like 2-3 touchdowns. In the
Big
red
Ten
zone.
championship game.
Yeah.
Yep.
And then he just like MIA. And he's physically there. I don't know if it's offensive scheming or what, but he just goes MIA. I expect a big year out of him, especially if he's trying to make it to the next level.
Yeah, and so do I. Think Kenyon Sadiq is going to have a massive year. I think this could be a year where he ends up getting his name called in the first round next year just because of what he's able to do physically, athletically. He is a freak. He's kind of what you would consider one of those hybrid tight ends who, he's a solid blocker, but in terms of the receiving game, like he creates matchup problems for the defense. Going back to your point last year, I think a lot of what it was is we saw Terrence Ferguson getting his share of reps, which by all means, that's all fair enough. He's a third round NFL tight end, going to have plenty of snaps with the Rams this year. So I think a lot of times what we saw last year in those receiving downs is we saw Terrence Ferguson kind of taking the lead there, which that makes sense to me. And then Kenyon Sadiq kind of played that tight end 2 role, kind of that second receiving tight end role behind Terrence Ferguson. And because in the blocking downs, we saw a lot of Patrick Herbert. Who got his chance with the Jags earlier in camp this year, and I believe he ended up getting cut. But point being, it's just there wasn't necessarily a role in which Kenyon Sadiq was going to be the guy. In terms of the receiving end of things, like I said, you had Terrence Ferguson, who has been a phenomenal doc for a number of years, who took over that. That makes sense to me. In the blocking role, he's not the strongest blocking tight end that we have in the room. Last year, Patrick did a phenomenal job. And I'm not saying Kenyon's a bad blocker by any measure. I'm just saying Patrick Herbert is a block first tight end. So, in kind of those situations, that's where we saw him. So Kenyon didn't really have a specific role carved out for him last year. However, coming into this season, he's going to have a massive role, especially when we're trying to break in a new quarterback, new receivers. Like Kenyon Sadiq is going to be that safety blanket.
Do you think it was more of a scheme thing with because Jordan James you had in the backfield? Why not just in the red zone let him tote the rock? Do you think that's maybe why Sadiq kind of wasn't so highly circled?
Well, I think part of what it is, I think schematically speaking, especially once we get down into the red zone, you're right. If we go back to last year, Oregon didn't have a tight end score a touchdown through their first 4 or 5 games
maybe.
Right. So it's not to say they weren't using them. It's just in that red zone, their philosophy was very different. And I don't think that's necessarily going to be the case coming into this season. I think Kenyon has done a great job establishing himself as the leader of, one of the leaders of that offense. If you guys have been watching the under construction videos that the Ducks put out every week, like it's very, very evident that Kenyon Sadiq is someone that everybody on that team looks at and says, this is a leader. Like, this is our guy right here. I think he's in for a massive year, honestly. I think, with the departure of Terrence Ferguson and guys like Patrick Herbert, his role is that much bigger. I think because we have so many questions as kind of who's going to take precedence in that receiving room, I think that his presence is going to be felt that much more. And then it's just another year of development, right? Like we see what type of freak athlete he is. And now we have another entire spring, entire summer camp coming in where he's kind of getting into that like peak physical performance that we haven't quite seen yet since Kenyon's been on campus. So I think there's going to be a lot of people around the country who are surprised at the output that we're going to see from Kenyon Sadiq. I'm not saying we're going to see 1,000-yard season from him just because Oregon doesn't use their tight end like that, but I think he's going to be a focal point if Oregon wants to move the ball as effectively as they're going to.
Good option for not new quarterback. I mean, obviously he started freshman year, and then did have a little bit of playing time last year on some cleanup and Dante Moore, but it's a great little safety blanket to get to the tight end. Let's talk running back real fast. You got a guy that, this might be a hot take, is as good, if not better, than Jordan James. You guys may have not seen him because he played obviously for Tulane last year, but Micaiah Hughes is an absolute dog. Tulane has produced running back after running back. Look at Tajay Spear. I know he's been a little bit banged up in the NFL, but that guy is absolutely electric. He sat behind Tajay Spear, and now he's getting a run at Oregon. Obviously, Tulane had some NIL issues last year with some bounce checks, it sounded like, and so they lost half their team before the bowl game, which Florida whipped up on them pretty bad. But a guy that is as plug and play as Jordan James, I would have to say.
Yeah, and honestly, I think I would make the argument he even has a higher ceiling than Jordan James did. Jordan James was a phenomenal running back, obviously getting his chance with the 49ers right now, and you're not going to hear me slander him in any capacity. I'm a Jordan James fan. But one thing Jordan James was lacking last year was that home run hitting ability, right? I think he had one play over 20 yards through the first 8 games of the season. So he was a very stable running back, but he just didn't quite have that breakaway, that big play capability that we're used to seeing from guys like LaMichael James and the Kenyon Barners of the world and the Royce Freemans. And so I think having Mekhi Hughes come in this year, I think it's going to be a pretty seamless transition. They have 2 different run styles. However, I think Mekhi is a little more polished in terms of kind of ability with the ball in his hands. Does a wonderful job breaking tackles. You're not going to arm tackle him. He's an NFL caliber running back in that regard, where if you just get your arms on him, he's going to run right through it. You have to lay your body on him, have to stick him hard. And that's what we like to see, right? We like to have that option, but it's a really big compliment to what else Oregon has in that running back group, right? I think if we just talk about Mekhi Hughes, that does a massive disservice to guys like Noah Whittington, who's been here. I believe this is his 4th year with the program after transferring in from Western Kentucky. He's been a wonderful receiving back, and he's kind of that the thunder and lightning tandem to what a Mekhi Hughes is, right? Mekhi Hughes is a little more of that I'm going to punch you in the mouth type, and Noah Whittington is a little more of that shifty, you better get your hands on him or he's gone type thing. So I think Oregon has a wonderful tandem in the running back room. I am really, really excited to see Mekhi Hughes, particularly in the red zone. I think that's where we're going to see him a lot, is used in between that 7-8 yards out mark. I think we're going to see him as a staple in the red zone. He's in for a big year. I think Duck fans, they know they're getting a gem, but I don't think at this point they quite understand just how big of a piece he could end up being.
Yeah, for sure. I'm super excited to just see the young tandem of backs and see what they can do. This is going to be a great test, week 1 versus Montana State. Obviously, not going up against a super juggernaut. Let's kind of roll into that a little bit. We're gonna finish the Duck talk off here. I mean, there's just not much to talk about when it comes to Montana State. Obviously, a big slate of games today. Which one is on your radar as maybe an ESPN Classic, possibly? What game are you most excited to see non-Duck related?
I think the answer has to be Ohio State, Texas, right? Like, is there another answer out there?
Clemson LSU also gonna be a probably a very good game. I don't think that Brian Kelly has won at LSU in a first game matchup. They always seem to fumble the ball right at the last second. Can it be the year? And then obviously later on you have the Catholic versus Miami. We're after that viral thing went with Notre Dame. I'm gonna just keep
Keep it
it Catholic.
PC.
Yeah, keep it PC. So I think you got three games that could be absolutely spectacular. I know Texas Ohio State's big because of Arch Manning. Ohio State has a new quarterback. A lot of lost a lot of pieces to the draft, but they always seem to just reload. Texas also lost a lot of pieces to the draft, so I don't think it's going to be. I don't know, man. I don't know if it's going to be the game that everybody's thinking it's going to be because of the quarterback play early.
Well, and honestly, the quarterback play is kind of why I'm most excited to watch this one. Like, I think this is probably the only matchup of the week you look at that you're like, yeah, this can be a national championship game. Like, LSU is a great program, but I think we look at LSU's roster and say, yeah, you guys are going to compete for a title this year. Like, love Garrett Nussmeier, but I don't think they have that team this year.
Yeah.
Like Clemson, you can make an argument for sure. I have nothing bad to say about them. Miami, you will never, ever, ever hear me pick them to do anything of substantial anything. So, I
Yeah,
so
their in game
yeah.
their in game coaching is one to scratch a head at for sure. I mean, Mario
Well, and Duck
Cristobal.
Duck fans are so familiar. You could slander Mario on here all day, and the Duck fans are gonna eat you up.
Mario
Uh,
Cristobal can't win a big game. It doesn't seem like, and I think they're thinking they're going to have the resurgence of Cam Ward 2.0 and Beck, and that's not it.
okay,
I'm not saying Beck's not going to throw for a ton of yards in that offense. I'm just saying that it's not going to look like Cam Ward.
No, it's not. First off, he can't move like Cam Ward. If we think about so much of what made Cam Ward so effective last year was his ability to extend plays, navigate the pocket cleanly, use his legs when he has to. I wouldn't call him a run first quarterback, but he definitely could use him when need be. And Carson Beck just doesn't quite have that mobility. That's not to say he can't move. He's not a statue in the pocket. That's not a type of passer necessarily he is. However, if you make him if you flush that offensive line a little bit, make him use his legs, good things aren't necessarily going to happen. I'm not super high on Carson Beck. I really never have been. I think a lot of the reason we gave Carson Beck his flowers is because he played at Georgia and that team was phenomenal. And if you're the quarterback of a team who is as good as they were, obviously, you're going to get that recognition. But now that that's gone and he's playing under a Mario Cristobal led offense, playing down in Coral Gables with all 14 fans that'll probably pack their stadium. I don't know. I'm not a believer in Miami, and obviously some of it's bias, right? Like I just don't like the Canes. Therefore, I'm not going to pick the Canes to do anything of substance. But I do like what Notre Dame brings to the table. I think they have some questions of their own to be answered. I think the
Yep.
offensive line, they have a little, they need to get that thing solidified right away. Obviously, have a great ground game. They should have some great receivers, playmakers all over. Should have a solid defense once again this year. I'm excited for that one. I would really love to see like a 24-point blowout. That would make me really happy. But I actually just looked it up. This game's not till tomorrow, the Catholics and Convicts game.
Yeah, it's going to be Sunday game, which
Yeah,
is awesome.
Sunday night. I actually just realized that. So yeah, now I'm really doubling down on my take. This Ohio State Texas game today. That's the one I got circled.
You're taking Ohio State, or are you taking Texas?
I'm going Texas, and I know they both have new quarterbacks. Ohio State gets the newish quarterbacks. Ohio State gets the home field advantage at the shoe. I just think Texas has more weapons for Arch Manning. Arch Manning does have his feet wet at the P4 level, playing with Texas last year in Quinn Ewers' absence. Obviously now he gets the keys to the offense, and this is kind of his show. So I think Texas is going to squeak this one out. I think it's going to be a one possession game, but I like the Horns here.
Yeah, give me Ohio State. We'll circle back next week and see who got that. I think they're just gonna lean on that vaunted defense. They've been like number one defense like 3 years in a row. So give me Ohio State, give me Clemson, and give me the Catholics for the big three matchups that we have this today.
Yep, I'm with you on almost all of them. Like I said, I'm rolling with the horns. I think Clemson's going to take care of LSU. I think they have too much solidified on offense. The defense, once again, should be great. And I do have questions about how Brian Kelly starts his year. If we just look at history repeating itself, I'd say he's not going to have the greatest showing tonight. So I like Clemson there. And then obviously tomorrow, we just talked about it for a couple minutes here, but I think Notre Dame returns much more. I think they have fewer questions, and I don't think Miami's home field advantage is going to mean diddly squat once, kickoff happens.
For sure. All right, I am Cody the Professor. That is Derek the Duck. We'll wrap it up, get this thing to you, and we will see you later. We will actually see you next week. Got some big stuff coming for the Duck channel. Can't wait for the season. Definitely going to keep an eye on that Montana State game, even though it's not the premier game. Definitely going to watch that. So we will see you later. If you guys want to come hang out tonight at 7 o'clock, I'm doing a live watch of the Florida Long Island game. So come on by to the High Top Sports channel, hang out with us. I'm gonna be sucking down lattes and watching them beat two for one night, ladies' night, Long Island, whatever they are, the Sharks or the I don't know.
Oh, Prof, this clip could go viral if, the world crashes tonight.
I know. All right, guys, we will see you later. I'm Cody the Professor. That is Derek the Duck, and we are out.